Hello everyone, my name is Rajesh Kumar and I'm your DevOps SRE DevSecOps coach.
Okay, so today I'm going to teach you Git. So one of the first tools every software engineers must know. Uh, what is Git? Why do we know? Why do we need Git? How to work with Git? What is GitHub? How do we work with GitHub? You know, branching, merging, conflict resolutions, undoing, all the scenarios which I'm going to talk about today. So let's start with it. So, so what is Git? So guys, there is one concept which we have, and that is called versioning. So whatever the code we write, and the code has been written by a different set of developers all the time, right? So we want to track that code over the period of time, history in terms of who has modified the code, what was the code modification done, why the code modification was done, where exactly the code has been added, when it was added. So all this fundamental knowledge we want to have it on the common code base. So some of the things, and the concept for tracking these is called versioning. So uh, you have so many versioning tools around the globe, uh, which we have started with SCCS. Okay, anyone have question or something? Someone is speaking? No. Okay. So we have multiple tools in the history for this requirement. So in open source category, we had a SCCS in 1972. Then we got RCS 1982. Then we got CVS, and then SVL in 2000 somewhere, and then now Git. So these are the tools which we have for the versioning in the open source category. But in the paid categories also, there were so many tools where we had it. For example, Perforce, ClearCase, Perforce from Perforce, ClearCase from IBM, Mercury, and few more tools actually. So look at this. This is the some of the timeline and history points in order to versioning tool history. That is so you might not want to uh, get interest in this, but one of the date you should check it out when the Git is created. So Git is created in 2004, and Git is created by Linus Torvald. So that is something which is a very important date for us. Okay, so five, sorry. So Git is born in April 2005, and who has invented the Git? Who has created the Git? Uh, so it was done by Linus Torvald. Anyone have idea who's Linus Torvald? Anyone?
The author
Yes.
of Linux.
Yeah, Linus Torvald is the same person who's the father of Linux also, the one which we were discussing in the kernel session, if you remember. So yes, Linux Torvald was using Bitkeeper to store the source code of kernel at that time, and they had some disagreement with the Bitkeeper company. So Linus Torvald decided to write his own tool rather, using Bitkeeper, and that was the moment when Git is born. So this is the things. So now Git is popular again. Why? Because one of the reasons, like we all are learning, so it's popular. Of course, then only we are learning. But again, it's an open source and free software. So it's a free open source means you can write the code, you can look at the code, and it's a free. And Git is compatible to all the operating system which you know. Now, Git is distributed. So why we are saying Git is distributed? This will come to know in few minutes. But Git is a distributed version control, and because of this is a distributed version control, Git is faster than other SEM tools in the past, maybe many times 100x in also. So these are some of the reason. Now, if you look at this, why the Git is very popular. So number of Git repo at a GitHub, mind it, I said Git repo at a GitHub. Look at this number of repos in 2009 and then 2020. And again, if you look at this number now, it will be multiplied by this. So yes, we all know Git is very popular for storing the source code. Now, who can use the Git? So let me tell you here, anyone who want to version their files, you can use the Git. So most of the time, these files can be any source code as such, which you can read it, human can read it. As you can read this PHP, Ruby, Java, and all these scripts. It's ideal for storing it in Git. But you can also store images, movies, music, fonts, Word documents, and PDF. That also, but you should not do that. Why? Because Git is not designed for versioning for the non-text based file. That means images. So you cannot compare between the two images, but you can compare between the two files, two text based file. So Git is very ideal tool for the storing the versioning between the text based file. That's the reason, though you can store the non-text files as well, that's not a problem, but you cannot have a versioning over there. Now the question is, Git is distributed, so why we are saying so? So in order to understand Git is distributed, let's understand this way. So guys, what we have, first, I'll talk about the one model which is called server and client model. And then I will talk about the distributed model. So that way you understand the difference between that. So whatever the tools we have discussed here, if you look at this here, CVS, SVN, ClearCase, Perforce, and all these tools were based out server and client model. So what happens? So in the server and client model, there is one server, okay, and then there is one repository, okay, and this repository is managed by one software called, it can be SVN or CVS or Perforce and things like that. So this repository primarily divided into two parts. This repository. Here you have a files, the one which you want to version, and then here is your metadata. When it's a metadata, that means all the information about the version. For example, who, what, why, where, when, on all kind of things. So every repository, there is one repo minded. This every repository is having files which you store the code and then metadata, versioning, detail. And now, if you want to access this, you have IP address of the node and then port number and some access. So this is the one developer, this is another developer, and he will do what, he will have a client and he will download the code from the server. And if developers want to add the code, modify the code, delete the code, you know check the code, so for that client has to have access with server. I mean, all this time this connection is needed, established connection is needed to do any changes. So the changes happen in the repo, and this client, with the help of the local copy, you work with it. So this connection is very much needed. So in this model, we have, this one is called server and this is called client. So client do not have a versioning, mind it. When I say versioning means the metadata, client do not have it. Server has it. And for everything like adding, modifying, deleting, and all stuff like that, you need to have established connections, in this. So this model, we call it a server and client model. Are you okay with this, all of you?
Yes.
Okay, but you know what? That Git is not a based out on server and client model. Git is based on a distributed model. What does that mean? So in a Git model, what we have, let's say you want to version the source code. So this is your laptop, this is someone else's laptop, this is someone else's laptop. Everyone has their own workstation, right? And then the repo, everyone have their own repo actually. Look at this. So if you look at the distributed model, everyone have their own repo. Whereas if you look at the central model, only one repo is there, which is located at the server, and we all access that. But here you have Git client talk to the local repo. This client talk to the local repo. Local repo, again we have files and database of the history. Files and database of the history. So this is the client talk to the local repo. So here if you see that this whole code is distributed. There's no one point of failure. There's no ISS server in this concept. This is the local repo LR. This is the local repo for this user. This is the local repo and this is the local repo. That means if this guy wants to add, delete, modify, and view the code, he can look at it at a local repo only. No server concept is here. So this model is called distributed model for the architecture. So now, did you understand that what is the difference between the server and client model and distributed model? All of you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, guys, how can we get started? In a simple way, if you look at the image, how can we get started? That means this is me, this is my laptop, let's say, and how can we get started with Git? So that is something which I am going to teach you now. So first thing, let's have a installation. So guys, here first thing you have to how to install it. This is the first question. So now let me tell you here, if you are in Windows, then you will have to install using exe file. If you are in Linux, let's say Ubuntu, then there is one command if you run, it will be installed. For example, which command? Sudo apt install git-y. Now, if you are in RHE or CentOS family, then apt will be replaced with yum. So apt is a package manager, yum is your package manager. So yes, you can install in this. Again, if you are in a Mac, here Mac, you can install this Git from the store, but also you can download the DMG file and you can install that in the Mac as well. So now the question is, these are the commands will automatically download and install, but how can we download Windows file or how can we download DMG file? Okay, so that is where I want to show you here, git-scm.com. Okay, so this is the website. From there you can download Git. You see here download for Windows, and if you access from the Mac, automatically Mac options will come. So it's a exe file and you will download and then install it. How do we install it? Just next, next, next and finish. So let me check if I have already installed and download. In my laptop, it's already there. So I don't have to do that. So this is how you can install the Git in your laptop. Okay, now I want to tell you one thing which is important in Windows. So in Windows, when you install Git, you will also get one additional tool which is called Git Bash. Okay, let me show you here. Go to this, type Git. Here it is. This is the one utility, you get it, and that's called Git Bash. Okay, so what is Git Bash? So guys, Git Bash is a command line. So then you'll say, okay, I have a PowerShell, I have a command, Windows command anyways. Why do we need this? So Git Bash is a command line tool, but I like it because Git Bash, you have a very good color combinations to display the differences between the Git operations. That is one thing. And also using Git Bash, you can run basic Linux command in Windows. Yes, you can learn basic Linux command in Windows only. I'm saying not all commands it will run, but at least basic commands it will run. That's the advantage of it. So that is the reason we all use a git bash rather than command line or PowerShell. So are you comfortable, all of you, so far? Any questions, any doubts?
Do we need to install Git Bash right now?
No, this I'll share that all this offline documents and
Okay.
recordings are offline, so you have to do that. Okay, so now this is done. So now next question is, okay, fine. Probably you need a documentation. So what to do? So just type git install. At the end of it, put the DevOps school, and you will find my tutorial. For example, see here how to install Git client and how to install Git on Linux and Ubuntu and how to upgrade Git. These are all other tutorials. I have it for you, so you can check it out. See here. So complete information you have it, whatever I talked about it, some screenshot and so on. So Git is done. So now next question is how to start working with Git. Now, when you say start working with Git, that means you are the developers, you are having certain codes and you want to version using Git. That's all you will do that. Nothing else to do in Git. Why you are using Git? Because you want to version the files, the source code using Git, and that techniques you want to learn, right? So that I call it Git basic workflow. Okay, Git basic workflow. So Git basic workflow DevOps code. Okay, so now this way you will have to work with this tutorial. Okay, not this one. I repeat, local repo, because if you look at this image here, all of us will work in the local repo. So this is Rahul, he will work with his own repo. This is Ramu, he will work with his own repo. Everyone in a Git architecture will work with own repos only, local repo. So this will help us. So let me open up. Now, this image again we'll discuss in some time, but for get started with, first step number one, did you install the Git client? And this is a one-time activity, it has to be done in the laptop, and we discuss that is done. Now, second thing what you have to do, create a Git repo. So how do we create a Git repo? And that is where we have a command called git init. So I must tell you here, whenever you go and create a Git repo, you must run this command in the empty directory. Some people what they do, they go to the command line, they open the git bash or cmd or whatever it is, and they started firing the commands. Let me tell you here, if you start firing the commands, you are firing the commands under the user home, and that is not good. So what you should do, this is the techniques. Let's say I am working on the in the desktop. So let me close this. Let me here, and this is my workspace. It can mean other drive also. And here, this is my folder, and inside that I have create one more subfolder. This is called repo one, and inside that I will go right click and open, and you see here git bash here it is. So I will run this command in the empty folder. It has to be empty folder. Do not run in the some places where you have already so many files and the files which you don't want to version it. So git init, I did this, and if you read this, there's one empty repo got created. Done. Now, if you notice this one, ls-la, there is one empty there's one dot hidden directory got created. Now, in Windows, you might not see until you enable show hidden items. This is the .git directory. That is your repo. That is your repo. That is your local repo. Okay. So this is something which you
Can
have
we
to
change
do.
can we change directory to some other path?
No, no. You cannot change. This is hard coded with a git. So that means your repo will be .git, will be hidden in the same directory where you are working. Make sense? All of you? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now next thing is that is done. Now guys, this is something which you have to do that. See, you are the engineer, you are a developer, you are a programmer, you are supposed to know what file you want to version. You decide. Sometime you do all this activity, you write a code using Eclipse, sometime Visual Studio Code, sometime Notepad, sometime command line. So you decide how do you want to create a code which you want to version it. So now what I'm going to do, manually I'm creating a code just for the demo sake. Where's the Notepad? I can't see my Notepad options in my here. Do you see? Strange. Anyways, so here I'm creating one file which is called file1.java, and here in this file I am writing this is my code, line number 1, line number 2, line number 3. Remember 3 lines of code we have it in this. It's a Java code. Okay, so now this is the way you write a code. But you know what, bash has also provided some of the cool functionality which is called touch command line. So quickly I want to create few more files. So file2.java, file3.java, and if you see ls, you got the 3 files. Now if you look at step number 2, this all the coding has been done. I've got the 3 files so far. I have written some codes over there, and that is the code I want to version it. Okay, so that is the step number 3. Now next one is you have to set your name and email address. Okay, now what is the name and email address? Let me tell you, there is no password, there is no user ID. Why? Because ultimately you are going to version the source code in your local repo. So in order to access the local repo, do you need a password? No, of course not, right? So that is not required. So how do you identify which user has committed? What is your name and all? So that is where Git is saying, hey, you set up your name and email address repo wise, and then that information will be used for committing the code. So here if you see that I have set my name Rajesh Kumar, an email address, and also I am validating whether it's set or not. And mind it, this can be set at the repo level or global for all the repo as well. So if it is a global, you have to add the command hyphen hyphen global into that. But right now I just want to set up at the local level. So let me do that. So here this is the command I'm running, and let me improve the view a little bit of it. Okay, so here copy paste this command, done, done, and I want to see that whether it's set or not using this command, done. Look at that, at the end of it, it is there already. So this steps is also done. So are you comfortable with the step number 3 and 4, all of you?
Should we do this after the class or do it in parallel while you're doing?
No, no, no. Parallel will not do that. So I
Okay.
will do that, demo it, record it. I'll provide you the all the files after this.
Okay.
And with the help of the recording, you will do that. And if you have any doubts, you can put it in the WhatsApp group. Okay. So now this is the step. Now next thing is step number 5. You have to add your data file, the code. How do we do that? So clear the screen. ls, I have a 3 files, file1.java, file2.java, and file3.java. So I have to add it. So how do we do that? Git add file1.java. Done. So that is the step number 5. Done. So that means if you want to version any source code, you have to add it. This I will explain in few times in a detail. Just give me some time. Now, see here, you have written a code, you have added a code. Now the time has come for committing the code. So how do we commit? This is the command line here. Command is git commit and for what message you want to give it, and this is my commit, enter. And now guys, this is committed. Now I want you to look at it here. So I have committed only one file and there are three insertions. Any idea why we have three insertions?
Is it
Why we
because
have three insertions?
we added 3 lines?
Wonderful. Yes. So git track each lines basically you modify. Okay, so now the question is, how can I see this commit? I have versioned this file, the file 1.java, I have versioned it, but in the future, I want to see that what commit I have done. So this is the command which you have git log, which you want to run it, done. And there's one more command which you have is git show. Okay, git show, and you have to run this git show with a commit id. What is this? This is the commit id. So then now you will ask, what is a commit id? So guys, Git do not provide the revision number like 1, 2, 10,000, 10,001, 10,002, like that it is not providing. So anytime you commit, it generate 40 character hash value to identify uniquely. So this is done by the SHA-1 algorithm in Git, and that is how they have a record of each commit which you made it. And let me tell you here, each commit has their own parent commit. That means if you make a next commit, the parent commit will be this one actually. So this is how this SHA-1 algorithm manages the integrity of the commits and changes. Okay, so if you do this we can call it a commit ID, or sometimes you call it a checksum, or whatever it is. So if you do this git show, and I want to see the all the commit which was done as part of this commit ID, this is the command. So now let me show you. Look at this very carefully. I want to know some of the fundamental answers in this whole things. And what is the fundamental answer? A question: who has committed this code? So I see that author Rajesh Kumar. When it was committed, here is the answer. Why this code was committed? Here is the answer. Where is the code which is committed? In the root directory? Here is the answer. And what code is committed? Here is the answer. So this is what you want to version and using certain tool, and that we are using Git for it. So if you see that image, same thing, I have tried to explain it: who, what, why, when, where, and all. And the commit ID which you create, I have just described in the image itself. So guys, are you understanding, all of you? What is the flow? Again, let me repeat: write a file, add a file, commit the file, and validate the commit. Simple. Any questions, any doubts so far?
Yeah, one question. So, for example, if you have 4 users, they all will have 4 masters, right? On their local.
Now let me ask you one thing: where the 4 user is coming? That is a problem here. It is not a server and client model. Look at this. I explained it to you. In a server, you have one user, two user,
Mhm.
and they are using common repository. But in a Git,
Mm.
are we using the common repository? See, this is you.
No,
This is
local.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all are having their own. So can you give your access to your laptop? Of course not. Now then you'll say, Rajesh, how can we share our code then in that case? That is a different problem. We'll sort it out separately.
Okay.
So first, the challenge that we have is we have to version our source code, but in the local repository. So there is no 4 user as such. I am the only one user, and I can access my own local files without any password or user ID or whatever it is. Make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
So now guys, you will ask a question, very important question. Rajesh, why we have to do add, why we have to commit? Okay, why do we have to add, why do we have to commit? What happens when you add, what happens when you commit? So this is the fundamental and most important knowledge, you have to gain it. And in order to explain that, I must ask you to look at this image. Okay, very important image. Okay, so let me snippet this one. Look at this. So the place where we have source code, this is the source code, okay? The place we have a source code, this we call it workspace. That means if you see that the code I am having located in the repo1 directory, and there's a file 1, 2, 3 and all, that is called workspace, and this is me. You write a source code in the repo1 directory and that is called workspace. So now the question is, what we have other part of it. So guys, we have a repo, and which is a .git directory. If you remember, here it is in the same directory. Look at this path also. We have a repo. Now you know what? This repo, the one which you see .git, we should not complicate right now, but at a high level, .git is also divided into two parts: staging and repo. Yes, the .git, the one which you see, is also divided into two parts. There's one area which is called staging, and there's one area which is called repo. Now if you go inside that, you have a few structures here. You don't need to complicate right now yourself with any of this, because it's not required to know right now this directory. But this is also divided into two parts theoretically. What do we call it? Staging and repo. So now if I understand overall, in Git there are three locations. One, we have a workspace, another we have a staging, and a third one which we have a repo. Are we clear so far, all of you?
Yeah, Rajesh.
Now next thing is, when you modify the source code, you means human modify the source code, they work in the workspace. So here I added my code, I modify my code, whatever you want to do, you can do that. So here you add a code in my create a code. When I say add, means you produce the code, modify the code, add whatever it is, change the code and all. And then you know what, you send that code to the staging area. Now the question is, how can we send the code which is in working directory workspace to staging area? And for that only we use the code command called git add. That means if someone will ask you, hey, what is the significance of the git add? So then you must say there are three areas in Git: workspace, staging, and repository. If you want to send the code from the workspace to staging area, then you have to use the command called git add. So now once the code you have in the staging area, you must remember, look at the image, very simple. You want to send to repo. Mind it, repo is the final resting place for the every changes, and you want to send through repo. How can you send it? Using commit command, git commit command. That means file you got in the staging area, and from here you want to commit permanently the for versioning, that is called commit process. So if you see that one commit you did, then second commit you did, third commit you do, fourth, fifth or hundreds commits you do, and each commits you do, it create a checksum for 40 character to identify. So this is the place, final place where you have a repo which has a multiple commits, and this is where you want to version the source code. So now from the staging to send that code to the repo for permanent resting for the versioning purpose, you use the commit command. So with that in context, I want you to read this again. So when I say add a files from workspace to git staging area, and when I say commit the files, then you are saying, hey, commit a files from the git staging to repo area. Are you clear all this? with this concept?
Yes.
So now you will say, Rajesh, I want to know which file is where. I want to know that. So which command to try? So the command is git status. So see here, if you read this, Git is saying, hey, I don't have a tracking. That means I don't track this file. Of course, because I have not added, I have not committed, so Git is not able to track. So if you see that in this directory, there are 3 files, but when you say Git status, only 2 files. Why? Why the file 1 is not showing? Because Git is saying, hey, I will not show you the file in status if that file has been versioned already. Version means committed already. I will not show you. I will only show you the files which the changes has not been versioned. In this case, file 2 has never been added and committed. File 3 has never been added and committed. So can I add a file 2 now? So git add and file 2.java, and here now you see that status. Now you see that this file still in the workspace, non-tracking. These files you have in the staging. If you see that, read this staging and all. So now if you know that which files is in what locations. So the files which is still in workspace you have in untracked locations. The files which you have in the staging you can see above. Now can you modify the existing file also? So here you know what, I'm going to modify file1.java. Okay, and here I'm going to add a code, fourth line of code. And now if you see that status. Now if you see that file1.java is coming, but it's coming in the workspace, it's not in staging. Why? So Git is saying, hey, listen, I have this file, so that's the reason it's not an untracked file I'm keeping. But here I'm saying I have this file, but whatever the new changes you have, that new changes, I do not have it. So you have to follow the process again for the new content only. That means here is saying changes not stage for commit. So first you add it and then commit it. Okay, so now this changes which I added line just now. See, this file is there in the Git repo. Old content is also there in the Git repo, but the new content, if you want to add it, so you have to start the process from the adding and committing. Okay, so now if I do git commit, then which file will be committed? This file, because this commit will take the operation from the staging area to staging area to repo. So guys, now are you clear about this add concept and commit concept?
Yes. There is no situation where you go directly from workspace to repo, right? It's always this
No,
path. Okay.
no, there's no situation. But you know, guys, you can ask, guys, why we need staging area? Simple reason, guys. Staging is a place for review. See, you are a developer, you are a software engineer, so you keep modifying the files. You may not remember what has been coded, what has been modified, what has been changed, what has been deleted. You may not remember. And suddenly, if you commit directly to depot, havoc will be created. So what is there? So what is a good practice? You modify the files, add it, you keep piling up in the staging area. here. So this is a quick way to work with it. You can do this one also, but people remember head tilde one is the like one lesser, two lesser, three lesser. So now you see that 89A, which is which was our second commit. Got it? All of you?
So
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 all
you
these are
said
happening in local repo, is it?
Everything is happening in local repo. I repeat, on repeat. Everything you are doing with your local repo. This is my laptop. This is my client, Git client, and this is my local repo. I'm not at all working with anyone else. With anyone else.
Okay. So once we do the checkout head -1, head tilde one, which means that it is going to the previous commit, and after that, if we make further commits, will it
So
allow further commits?
yes, you it will be allowed, but you are making to the changes to the temporary branches actually. So yes,
so
you will be allowed.
that's where the multiple universe will come, right? Because you're creating a separate universe or
Yes,
pathway.
yes,
So, okay.
yes.
But
That is
what
you will.
happens if you don't if you don't commit that head tilde one? Does that head tilde one then go away?
Yes, yes, it's a temporary one. If you don't commit, then it will go away. So if you see that here, if I'm checking out back to the master, my own universe, and here you see, gone.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Rajesh, if I
So
do
guys,
any commit, one second, only one second. If I do any commit in this detached state, right, it doesn't belong to any branch. So if I committed, what happens? Will the file be reflected in the master or it won't be? So whatever I do in
okay,
this detached state.
so if you commit in the temporary branch which is detached from the head, the one which you see second one, so the commit will be there in the Git repo. Mind it, commit will be there in the Git repo, but not
Mm,
attached to any branches. So it become
yes.
orphan actually. So you cannot track because you are the human. You have to work with the branch only. So what is the solution? Either you create a branch from that commit ID and then commit, or maybe after that also, or there is one few commands which we there where we can identify the orphans which is not a part of the branch. So there's a reflog command, git reflog. So
Left
git
log, yes.
reflog will tell you that all the reference for the logs for your repository, and there are a few more commands are there, but I have not committed any commit so far in the
Mm,
temporary branch. You might not see that actually right now.
okay.
Okay, so that is tough. Now, guys, we have a few more commands which I want you to get comfortable. So look at this. Let's say you want to add all files in one go instead of git add and file name all. Now, guys, if you want to commit selective file, let's say you have multiple files in the staging area, but you want to do the selective commit only, then you have a same command, but specify the file name which you want to select. Now you want to commit the directory. So mind it, directory, empty directory is meaningless in the Git. That means you cannot commit empty directory. So what do you need to do? You have to create a directory. Inside that you have to create a certain files, then add it and then commit it. Then only. So here the file is important, directory is not important. Then only the link will be created. Now, how can you modify existing file? So yes, even though if you modify existing file which you have committed already, you have to add it again and commit again. In a simple way, I must tell you, no matter whether you do adding the file, removing the files, modifying the files, or creating a new files, for every time you have to add and commit. Hard code this statement. You want to go back to the old history, check out and commit ID. I talked about it. If you want to go to the latest source master branch, this is the command. If you want to remove certain files through git rm is a command and remove this file and commit and then status. So these are the some of the frequent use command what you will have to use in the local repo. Okay. So guys, any questions so far what you are supposed to do?
No.
So guys, what we have figured it out so far, how do we work in the local repo? Basically, how do we version our source code and so we can see the history in future. But the next question will come, Rajesh, okay, I'm fine with that. I can do that, but how about sharing my code with others? How about that? How about sharing my code with others? How can we do that? And that is where we have to learn next topic of our session, and that is called how to work with remote repo. Yes. So now I'm going to teach you how do we share the code with remote repo and other stuff. Okay, so that is our next topic. But before that, let's have one 15 minutes of break. Get your tea, coffee, restroom, and personal calls. And once you come back to the same meeting ID, I'll teach you how can we work with a remote repo. Understood, all of you?
Have any issues with our channel membership, you can drop an email to us at contact@debugschool.com, or you can also unsubscribe from channel membership anytime if you don't want to continue or did not like the video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries. We will reply to them at the earliest. Thanks for watching.